tell me a little bit about, your separation and what you and your ex did in order to make that step towards a more amicable divorce.
Yeah, so right off the bat, so my kids were 2 and 4 when we decided to separate. And one of the things that we kind of decided together was throughout the process and throughout ongoing years, we put the kids first. And that was kind of the mantra that we lived by. So, there were things that we had to do that I didn't necessarily like, and at times he didn't necessarily like, but we did them because it was the right thing for the kids. Nobody gets married and has children in the hopes that they're going to get a divorce. We didn't want to scar them for life. So it was really important for both of us to put the kids first, whatever's right, whatever's best for them.
And wow, I mean, you really got divorced when those kids were super young. So when you decided to put those children first, when they were 2 and 4 years old, I mean, they were really young. You had a long road ahead of you in terms of co-parenting. So what were the stages of kind of that process for you? I know a lot of people come to Better Than Bitter, and they're still living under the same roof. They haven't made that plan yet as to what the home living situation, the custody, the parenting plan is going to look like. So if you can reflect, and I know it was a while ago, but if you can reflect back and give some advice to the way that you all at that very early stage did things in stages.
Yeah. So for me, in my situation, I was the one that wanted to leave. So before I did that, we owned a house. And so we kind of, in my mind, I needed to know what my options are. Okay, I don't want to be married anymore, but what does that mean? What does that look like? What are my options? Where can I go? I know that I'm fortunate that we were amicable. We both had similar incomes at the time. So really it was just a matter of, can I go buy another house? Like, do I qualify? Now, I was not a mortgage lender at the time, but I remember it well. So this was almost pre-internet. That's how long ago it was. But I remember going to Barnes and Noble and just trying to find books like what, A, how do I do this without scarring my children? But B, mortgages in general. I didn't know anything about them. We bought our house from my mother-in-law. So it was, a private sale kind of a thing. And, we got a mortgage, but I wasn't really involved in all of that as much. So I really had no idea. I was kind of running some rough math numbers in my head. Could I do this on my own? And one of the decisions early on that we both made was that we weren't going to get into child support and alimony. And for us, because we had similar incomes at that time, it made sense. So he did buy me out. And again, we just did some rough math. In hindsight, probably not the best decision, but at the time it worked for us. So he bought me out and I bought my own house. And for me, it was important. The judge was kind of funny back then. Of course, they had different rules. We're talking 20 plus years ago. We did it ourselves. We didn't have attorneys. And the judge, he's looking at the paperwork and he's like, where's the child support? And we both chimed in, there is none. And he was kind of like questioning and looking at both of us. And in the end, he looked at my ex and said, she can change her mind and come back. And we both kind of nodded, which to me, we both had the same incomes. We were both going to be having households and the kids were going to be 50-50. And it just didn't seem right. Why would I take money from him? Because then I knew how much money he wouldn't have and where was he going to live? And my kids were going to go visit him. For us, it just didn't make sense. So it was important that, we both had a house. We both had our finances kind of squared away and we were semi-equal. And so we kind of decided that early on. And I honestly think that that's really how we stayed amicable. There weren't a lot of finances involved. We kind of, at the
Yeah.
end of the month, kind of squared up, I paid this and you paid that, and it worked. And like you mentioned, we had a long time to go before we were